4, 3, 2, 1. Action.
I'm waiting for that to go through.
Yeah, I know.
You're the one that-
Or jump the gun.
Well, he did just say you.
Sync to the.
You're right.
Sure, and then that last minute, you wait forever.
My computer says 5:30.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
There you
Like,
go.
It's 5:30 p.m. on February 17th, 2022. Calling to order the meeting of the Southeast Polk Board of Education. Karen, can I get a roll call?
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Here.
Bridget,
Here.
Tom, Lori,
Here.
Whitney,
Here.
Rick,
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Moving on to agenda adoption. Dr. Hlepnick, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, there are none.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, Karen?
Chad,
Yes?
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
All right, letter C, district vision and missions. Anyone want to volunteer for that?
Southeast Polk Community School District will learn, lead, live, success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Thank you, Lori. All right, now we're moving on to letter D, public comment. Just kind of read our guidelines here. The board recognizes the importance of citizen participation in school district matters. Citizens wishing to address the board must do so during the public forum portion of the agenda. Citizens need to complete a public comments card prior to the meeting and give it to the superintendent or board recorder. The public comment cards are located at the table in the entrance of the meeting. If an individual wishes to address the Board of Education, time is limited to 3 minutes. Any group wishing to address the Board of Education should elect a spokesperson. The spokesperson is limited to 5 minutes. The board president will recognize these individuals to make their comments at the appropriate time. When addressing the Board of Education, state your name and group name if applicable, address, city, and agenda item to be addressed. Only those speakers recognized by the board president will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. If disruptive, the individuals causing the disruption may be asked to leave the board meeting. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. Iowa open meeting law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district, board members, or community members. Remarks that are inappropriate, defamatory, or obscene will be considered out of order. Do we have any more cards? Just these two? Okay. All right. So first we have Kaylin Smith. Would you please state your name and address, please?
Kaylin Smith, and I'm just going to say Altoona, Iowa.
Okay. Thank you.
Am I good? Hello, my name is Kaylin Smith. My son is a senior and has been in this district since kindergarten. I'm here today to share our story and ask that you act to finally end bullying and the glamorization of suicides in our district. Many years ago, SVP put forth an RFP to local marketing agencies to combat these issues. That action, while admirable, did not work. An awareness campaign with a few classes to take and boxes to check might have felt good, but it did not accomplish its goal. How do I know this? On December 10th, 2021, I pulled my teenager from a car unresponsive as he overdosed to end his life. His eyes were open, his pupils were tiny, his breath was weak. He was alive, but he wasn't there. I rushed him to Mercy, watched in agonizing pain as medical staff worked on him until he was stable. That's when the real struggle began. I could go on for hours about what we went through in the hospital and the weeks and months followed as we try to navigate a broken mental health system in Iowa while receiving minimal response or support from this district. It was heartbreaking at every turn, it still is. As board members, you are elected to do what's best for all students in this district. You were not elected based on your political affiliations or politics, have no space in this room. But how do you expect the culture in this district to be anything but accepting and tolerating of bullying when the board has been subject to and even participated in that same bullying? Spending time having heated debates over issues that are not harming our students. No student in this district that I'm aware of has died from wearing a mask, getting a vaccine, or what they were taught or read. What is hurting our students is the culture that's allowing bullying, lack of mental health resources, and a teacher counselor shortage, which seem to get neglected. While I believe that bullying must be a conversation in the home, you are the leadership in this district. You set the tone for what behavior is acceptable and tolerated. You must do better, be better, and set that example. You have a chance to change the narrative and be on the forefront of finding a way to end this epidemic. You must get creative, think outside the box because the same things aren't working. Try to meet with parents, establish task force like Des Moines Public, reach out to other districts that have been successful. Go ahead and spend the necessary funds to get the district what it needs. Create workshops, bring in relevant speakers. If you need funds, host galas and auctions. We do it for everything else. There has to be more that can be done. On December 10th, I did what no parent should ever have to do. And if you don't act and start putting the same attention on this topic with the same vigor and passion as other hot issues, it will be another student, another family. It will happen again. My son is ultimately responsible for his decision on that day, but there is some accountability this district has in each of these events. You know there's a problem. I ask that you start doing more. Feel goods and check boxes aren't enough. The bullying in this district almost took my son. Please don't let it take someone else's. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Polly Antonelli.
Hi, I'm Polly Antonelli. I live in Altoona. I didn't realize I could clear so much of the room just by having my name read, but thank you. I wanted to thank you all for your hard work. And that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our public comments. On to letter E, consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
To approve.
Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, Karen?
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes. All right, on to number 2, old new business, letter A, confirmation of next meeting.
Motion to approve the confirmation of next meeting, which is March 10th, and a building visit on February 24th at Centennial.
Second.
Karen?
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
All right, letter B, cooperative sharing agreements. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the cooperative sharing agreements. Second.
All right, any discussion, questions? Bridget, I'm gonna assume no if you don't come off mute and say something.
Sounds good to me. Thanks, Chad.
All right, Karen?
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Moving along to letter C, first read of policies. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the first read of the policies.
Second.
All right, any discussion on this one?
Just glad I'm not on it anymore.
You know, I am on the committee and it was actually a lot of fun to better understand the rules and where they came from. We had some history lessons too, so yeah, it's very educational, and there'll be some other ones coming, but we couldn't, there are a couple that we couldn't come to a resolution on, so that's good.
With, I guess with that 70 and come to resolution, those aren't in this, or
No.
did you leave them as is? or-
They're not in here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Will we see those again, though?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Karen?
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Okay, letter D, Prairie Meadows grant. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the grants being submitted, applications, grant applications being submitted.
Second.
Any debate on this one?
I did have a question. Is there a set amount of money that we could get for each grant, or does all the money come out of one bucket?
You know, I'm not, excuse me, I'm not sure exactly how Prairie Meadows allots their funds for grants. We make requests and then they either don't fulfill the request at all, or they fulfill it to a certain level that they feel is appropriate, or they fulfill it all the way.
Okay,
We just kind of have to wait and see.
and maybe I didn't see that, but when is the decision made?
Toward the end of the school year, like June.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Karen?
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
All right, letter E, District Capital Projects dash Summer. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All good with it? Okay, Karen?
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Letter F, set the public hearing for roof repairs high school.
Motion to set the public hearing for March 10th, 2022 for the high school roof repair and replacement project.
Second.
Karen?
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes. Public hearing is set. All right. Letter G, approve architect for high school roof repairs.
Motion to approve B101 agreement between the district roof repairs at the high school.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any questions or comments on the architect?
Yeah, just more for public record. This is the previous roof repairs was storm damage, right?
A little bit of both. There's been storm damage and then there's also just been necessary repair.
And so this falls under the
This
just
is not storm damage.
timely.
Not paid by
Yes,
just-
insurance.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. So, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Karen?
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
You saying Brett or Fred?
Brett,
Brett, thank you. Just keeping you on your toes, Karen. Keeping you on.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
I'll go by Fred if we need to.
If that's what you want to be called, then we'll call you
We'll have to
that.
change your badge.
I still can't get used to the first names. I'm like. I keep waiting.
I think it's because of the double last
You
name.
did
It
it.
takes,
All right,
it's
you
okay.
did
I
it.
mean, I'm good with the first names.
All right, let's maintain order here, guys.
Sorry.
Letter H,
Out of order.
set the public hearing date for masonry work.
Motion to set the public hearing date for April 7th, 2022 for the high school masonry repair project.
Second,
And I'm assuming this is the sidewalks, correct? What is this? I just can't remember.
It goes along with the roof work, but we'll let Kevin
Okay,
address it here.
all right.
Did we?
No, we haven't.
But it's masonry work that's related to the roof work. So
Okay,
when they
got
do
it.
the change of the roof, then there's also been some
Masonry.
masonry that needs to be fixed up with it.
Okay, so up on the top
Not completely. Some of it does go further
elsewhere.
down.
Okay,
now he wants to talk.
Sorry, I thought you would answer the question. It's for around the exterior of the building. It's just the tuck pointing that needs to happen, some of the binding. things that
Okay, on the
need to happen.
tuck point.
Correct.
okay.
Okay, any other questions about masonry work? Karen?
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes,
All right. Letter I, approve the architect for masonry work on the high school.
So moved.
thank you.
Second.
Assume we're good?
Yep.
Everybody, okay. Karen?
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes,
Whitney,
Yes.
Letter J, set the public hearing for parking lot improvements.
motion to set the public hearing for March 10th, 2022 for the junior high, Spring Creek, Old District Office and Runnels Elementary parking lot improvements.
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All right, Karen?
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes,
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Letter K, approve architect for parking lot improvements. Do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion
second.
to approve. I should have said.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Any questions on the architect for parking lot improvements? All right, hearing none. Karen?
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes,
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes. All right, letter L, public hearing for plans and specifications for structured cabling package and specification for the new middle school. It is 5:48 PM. I will now open the public hearing to receive comments on the plans and specifications for structured cabling package plan and specification for the new middle school. Board Secretary, have you received any written comments?
I have not.
Is there anyone present wishing to provide comment? A few seconds here. All right, it is 5:49. The public hearing is now closed. We have a motion? All right, no, sorry. No motion on this one. Hold a Brett.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Letter M, structured cabling package plan and specifications, new middle school. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions on that? Is that, Jason, do you have anything you wanted to provide? Looks like we have one bid here with Communication Innovators. And this is probably a question for Kevin, but this is separate from all of the other bids that we have for the middle school.
We had 13 main bid packages go out the middle school. This one was separate because of the things we need to do with an E-rate program. It's a federal reimbursement program for some of the technologies pieces that we put into the building. So this had to be shown separate for that particular purpose, but this becomes part of the middle school itself.
Any other discussion, questions? All right, Karen?
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Okay, moving on to letter N, award of bids, grade level 6-7 middle school building. Mr. Bacom, do you have?
Yeah, we just have a few representatives here. We have BJ Freediers with Whites, Ryan Cadis with Rice, and also Tom Woolen with FRK, our design team here. If you have any questions regarding the bids that came through, you can certainly ask those questions at this point in time.
Are there any?
I don't have any questions. I just more or less have a comment before we approve this.
Okay, you want to make it now, or is it about?
Well, I didn't know if anybody had questions for me. I didn't want to.
Okay. Does it sound like it? You have more?
What's that? Oh,
Go ahead.
well, just as we get into the bids, this really, are we doing each one of these individually? Okay. So.
We can't just pull two of them.
Well, you can get to, but basically I'll just say what I'm gonna say on this one, because since it's just basic awards of bids. Obviously, I think everybody knows my position on the stadium. And so as we get into looking at these, I'm not gonna hold it up and vote no or make a big stink about it, but I do want to make sure I just get on the record that we don't have enough time into the project that the group that won the bid on for the football stadium. And so I just want to make sure that as we go into, we need to make some kind of forward motions for getting the lowest bid out of the away for, because every time we take the lowest bid, we're not always getting the quality work. And I said from the start on the thing for the football stadium is that particular group needs to prove me wrong and show me that they can do quality work. And I just don't know if there's enough time in the project that we have, because we're gonna be approving them for several pieces of the junior high and then the softball stadium when it comes up. I would assume we're gonna approve them. But I just want to say that I'm not gonna vote no or try to stop it, because obviously the law is there to say that we have to take the lowest bid. I think it's wrong. I think we need to, obviously as a board, get with the legislature or the appropriate people that handle that and make some changes with that. So I'll just leave it at that for the.
To answer your question, also Mr. Powell's regarding the bids, these are 13 separate different bid packages, right? So all these are all interlaced though with the middle school project. Some pieces of the bids are more important, more critical to the path of the middle school being done by the 24-25 school year than others. For example, landscaping, not till the end, right? So we can kind of, if we wanted to reject this, what the recommendation is down the road here, we can reject that one and push that one for a later date. But as far as being the lowest responsible bidder, you are exactly correct, Mr. Handy. The law does require us to award those bids to the lowest responsible bidder.
Could you explain again why they're separate bid packages and it's not all one?
I can try. BJ here is here as well. You know, typically with our programs and with our projects, we have one general construction contract that deals with everything related to a project. This one is so ginormous that we wanted to piecemeal this thing together so that we have specialties in those areas in which we package these things together. So we can get people that are specifically within that specialty bidding on those projects rather than having a big general contractor overseeing all those pieces.
Good evening, board. I would just add on top of what Kevin just said there, the other aspect of going the construction manager agent method, which you have on this project, it allows you to select a construction manager to be your advocate on the project. So essentially that means that instead of the contractor you're referring to running the entire project, it all goes through us, and it allows us to do whatever we need to do to make sure that you get the quality you deserve, the schedule that you need. And that's the benefit of breaking it up into these multiple bid packages and allowing us to be in charge of that.
Thank you.
One other thing I want to add, when you look at these bids, I talked a little bit about it in the agenda. I've talked about this before as well. We were trying to do something called an owner-controlled insurance program with this, where the district would play under the insurances, the general liability insurance for the programs. The cost of that premium of that insurance was far more than what we got as far as alternate bids for these things. So as you see these bids come through, I think I explained it in the agenda. The base bid was to include it without their general liability insurance for that particular contractor, and the alternate included that insurance for them. Since we're not going with that OSIP program, it's going to be the base bid plus the alternate, which is the total price of that contract.
So if you added up the cost of all of the contractor's insurance, their general liability, the other option was far more than that.
Correct, correct. From the number standpoint, the insurance piece from the contractor perspective in the aggregate was 130,000. Our premium estimate for not only this project, specific to this project, was 800,000. So the OSIP program is for this project as well as future projects that the district would do, but allocated this particular program, it was just far too high to absorb.
Does that leave us more exposed from an insurance standpoint?
And not exposed so much as it just means that we have to go after those folks rather than us having somebody else go after them for us.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if it was closer, I'd probably push for it because of some of the challenges we've had in the past with other projects. But because there's such a far spread, it would be hard for me to kind of advocate for that this time.
But you guys are going to keep them accountable. Each of the subs, you're going to hold them accountable. I mean, but we have to go out after the insurance side of it.
Correct. If something was inherently wrong with the structure, construction of that particular piece down the road.
If something goes awry with one of the subs, though, you'll pull in another one if need be to get the job done on time.
Yeah, so that gets into a lot of legal and what the
And they
contract
went
says.
through this
But
with the junior high too. That's why I'm asking.
yeah, so generally speaking, we follow whatever the contract tells us we have to do for remedying the situation. Usually there's time periods that they have to, you have to give them to allow them to fix the issue. But yes, if it comes to it, that's something we've certainly had to do in the past. Generally, we like to try and work with the contractor at hand and get their game improved. But it is something that has happened in the past. And if it would need to happen on this job, we would be in charge of making all that happen. Of course, working with your legal folks to make sure we're doing it all properly.
So Kevin, you said something earlier. You said the lowest responsible bidder.
Correct.
Instead of just lowest bidder. Could you, I understand what that means, but could you explain that for the record?
Yeah, so responsibility lies in a different criteria when it comes to trying to determine if a contractor is responsible or not. One of the first things we see is if they're able to get their surety bonds and their general liability clauses, that kind of tells us they're responsible. They're able to get that, their bonding pieces. Now, there's other levels of which we can determine responsibility beyond that. Our experience with the contractor, other experience with the contractor, those sorts of things. It's very difficult to challenge responsible within the context of bid law. And that's something that probably has been done in the past, but I know that it's a big challenge for any school district, any public entity to challenge responsible.
But it's not just the cheapest person, it's the cheapest and best and.
Correct. And
Other
you'll see in those
factors.
agenda items, there were bidders that didn't include things that should have been included with the bid, which one of the reasons why we're rejecting that last bid
Right.
as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other general questions before we go through this marathon? All right, let's go to number 1, general construction. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the bids for general construction.
Second?
Second.
Want me to- What, are we gonna name who the awarding, do we need that in the motion or not?
What was the question? Sorry.
Do we need to name it or can we motion to approve the bid? Or do you want us to name the winning bid in each of these? Okay. So, re-saying my motion to approve the awarding of the bid to Graphite Construction for general construction for the construction of new grade level 6-7 building projects for a total amount of $5,166,508, including the base bid amount of $5,148,000 and a bid alternate number 1 totaling $18,508.
We get a second on that?
She
Amy?
kind of already
I
seconded
do.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure
You did.
we're good there. Okay, any dialogue on this specific item? No. All right, Karen?
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
All right, number 2, structure. We have a motion.
Motion to approve the bid for Graphite Construction. For the administration recommends the board accept the core construction for structure for the construction of a new grade level 6-7 building project for a total amount of $13,055,200, including the base bid amount of $13,028,000 and bid alternate totaling $27,200.
Did you say graphite?
It's
on that
core.
one?
said-
I'm sorry, core,
First.
That one's cool.
Yeah.
core, sorry.
Do you want to just make it again?
Sure. I motion that we approve core construction for the for structure of the construction of a new grade level 6-7 building project for a total amount of $13,055,200, including the base bid amount of $13,028,000 and bid alternate totaling $27,200.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
questions, comments? Karen?
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Okay, number 3, masonry. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the bid of Seedorf Masonry for the construction of a new grade level 6-7 building project for a total amount of $1,682,177, including the base bid amount of $1,681,150 and bid alternate number 1 totaling $1,027.
Second.
Questions? All right, Karen?
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Number 4, roofing and sheet metal. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. The administration approves the board that we accept the Central States Roofing for roofing and sheet metal for the construction of the new grade level 6-7 building project for a total amount of $1,854,057, including the base bid of $1,840,000 and a bid alternate totaling $14,057.
Second.
It's a lot to read.
I'm sorry, who did the second?
Lori did.
Thank you.
All right, Karen?
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Okay, number 5, curtain wall at glazing and metal panels. Do we have a motion?
Motion to accept the Elite Glass and Metal for curtain wall glazing and metal panels for the construction of a new grade level 6-7 building project for a total amount of $4,617,760, including the base bid amount of $4,612,000 and a bid alternate number 1 totaling $5,760.
Second.
Any questions? Karen?
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes. Number 6, framing, drywall, insulation and ceilings.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the board accept the graphite construction for framing, drywall, installation and ceilings for the construction of a new grade level 6-7 building project for a total amount of $4,003,672, including a base bid amount of $3,995,000 and a bid alternate totaling $8,672.
Second.
Karen?
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Number 7, elevator.
I motion that the board accepts Schumacher Elevator Company for elevator for the construction of a new grade level 6-7 building project for a total amount of $103,016, including the base bid amount of $101,369 and bid alternate totaling $1,647.
Second.
Karen?
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Number 8, fire protection. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the bid for total fire protection for the construction of a new grade level 6-7 building project for a total amount of $548,700, including the base bid amount of $540,000 and a bid alternate number 1 totaling $548,700.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rick. Karen?
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Okay, number 9, mechanical and plumbing. This is the
Rick
one
wants to do it.
with the recommendation to reject.
I'd like to recommend that the board reject all bids for mechanical and plumbing for the construction bid package back out for the bids.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Karen?
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Number 10, electrical. Do we have a motion?
Motion to accept Van Monen Electric for electrical for the construction amount of $5,722,800 including the base bid amount of $5,712,000 and bid alternate totaling, I can't see it. Let's see, 10,800, sorry.
Somebody want to second that?
Second.
Karen?
Chad,
Yes?
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Number 11, grading and utility. Can I get a motion?
I motion to accept Sandstone Management LTD for the base bid and alternate for a total construction cost of $3,496,600.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Karen?
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes. Number 12, paving and sidewalks.
Motion to accept Graphite Construction for paving and sidewalks for the construction of new grade level 6-7 building project. Sorry, it's filling up a total amount of $1,548,298, including the base bid amount of $1,545,000 and bid alternate number 1 totaling $3,298.
Second.
Thank you.
Yep.
Karen?
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Okay, number 13, landscaping. This is another one where the administration's recommending. we
I'd like
reject
to-
bids.
Recommend that the board rejects all bids for landscaping for the construction of the new 6-7 building project and to send this bid package back out for bids.
Second.
Any questions? Karen?
Whitney,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Tom. Oops, sorry, Lori,
Yes.
All right, we made it.
Don't say that until it's over.
All right, letter O. It's a new letter. Softball field improvements bid award.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Let's see. Okay, motion to accept Graphite Construction as the general contractor for the softball field improvements project for a total project amount of $2,301,850, including base bid amount of $2,289,000 and bid alternate number 2 totaling $12,850.
Second.
Any questions or comments, discussion?
So bid alternate 2 is just the logo. Correct?
That's correct.
All right. The other one was without the logo. This is with the logo on the turf.
This is the logo on the turf.
Okay, perfect.
And the seating or there's sod or seating, we're gonna just handle that
Yeah,
separately.
there was such a disparity between the two bids that we thought maybe there was something, we could do it differently. And during our discussion with the RDG team, we thought we would change around some of the siding, some of the seating elements there too as well. So just depending on when we start, where we start, what pieces we get sided. We obviously want it to look nice when it's all said and done and ready for the season, but
Where's the sod supposed to, or the seed supposed to be at?
um,
Around the outside of the field?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Not
all-
in,
No,
okay.
no.
it's like, who wants that?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
So this is just the softball part of it, right?
Correct. Well, there's softball and there's also the entrance area to
The
the,
ticket booth area.
correct.
And The air
Yes,
conditioned bathrooms.
Yeah.
the restrooms, yes.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you.
Just restrooms, not air conditioned.
I will tell you,
Yeah.
I will tell you, we did get an estimate for that, and I can share
Yeah.
that with you later if you want, or I can share with you now.
All right, thanks.
Good night, Kevin.
He's not done.
I know he's not.
All right, anything else on this one?
Nope.
Karen?
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
All right, that's the end of the business portion of our meeting. So on to topics for discussion. You up first, Dr. Whitman?
You bet. Thanks. And thanks for the marathon there. I think this is obviously a big night for the district, and this is extremely exciting, even though that part was not very exciting. We all can admit that.
Yep.
And we'll talk more about that in a second. I want to start with several pieces of good news just to share. You may or may not be aware that our industrial tech program received 2 major grants over the last couple of weeks here. One totaling $30,000 from the Master Builders of Iowa, and another from Turner Construction for $25,000. These will be used to update CNC machines, one wood and one metal. If you didn't know, and I had to look to be 100% sure, that stands for computer numerical control. And what that means is machines control and give 100% accuracy and consistency on those, so that, for example, metal etchings can be exactly the same over and over and over again. And what this will do is help prepare our students with industry standard equipment right now as they prepare for their future careers. So I think that's exciting for our kids. Winter activities are starting to wind down or wind up, depending on how you look at it. A few of those to share. The state Deca competition is this weekend, actually hosted at our high school. And again, that's a program for business entrepreneurs, marketing, finance, management, hospitality. And we traditionally do very well in that. Part of the reason why I'm sure we're hosting the event as well. So that's exciting for those kids. We had several athletes that competed in the state swim meet last weekend in Iowa City. We have both boys and girls bowlers qualify for the state bowling meet, which is next week in Waterloo. Several of our students achieved all-state speech honors, and that is Saturday at CY Stevens up on the Iowa State campus. Our show choir won first place at Davenport North, including best choreography, best male vocalist, and best crew. Both of our basketball teams start down the tournament trail over the next couple of days. Saturday, the girls play Iowa City Liberty here, and Monday, the boys play Atumwa. And then wrestling, probably saw we finished as runner-up in the dual tournament last night. Just a fantastic match that came down to the last bout between 2 nationally ranked teams. Pretty exciting. And our kids bounced immediately back today in the first round, and we sit in first place as we enter tomorrow morning's quarterfinal round. Board visit. We had our visit at the high school last month, and we did talk about that a little bit last meeting, so I won't go into that, but we do have our next one coming up at Centennial Elementary next Thursday morning at 7:30. And I know Karen's listening to us. She'll send us reminders so we don't forget either. Black and Gold Gala is Saturday night. I remember that as a fundraiser for the Education Foundation and Dollars for Scholars that ends up supporting our great students and great teachers and staff. Now that you have accepted bids for the most part, except for a couple that will still be coming, we will have our official groundbreaking for the 6-7 building, which we're going to have to come up with a better name than the 6-7 building, and that's something that we can talk a little bit more about. That'll be the first week of April. We have a board meeting on Thursday, April 7th. So it'll be that week of the 4th through the 8th, and we'll talk a little bit more. Weather may have something to do with that. Since it will be April. So just kind of to put that on your radar. And then final thing, the governor did sign the SSA bill today. So that 2.5% is official for SSA. So with that set, the picture starts to become a little bit more clear on the budget for next year, and then eventually on staffing for next year, and the things that we can do and the things that maybe we can't do. We'll see. I'm not going to steal any more of Kevin's thunder because I know that we're all waiting for that final agenda item where he's going to kind of start us down that road of the FY23.
Incredible news
Budget.
or the bad news? Good.
We're gonna have to lay off all the board members.
Because we get so much.
So
pay.
expensive.
Right.
Is that,
That's it.
that's it? All right. Letter B, literacy specialist update. Dr. Latham?
Good evening, board. As we continue throughout the school year, we are implementing our learning recovery plan and very pleased to have our literacy coordinators here tonight to share our progress with literacy achievement. So I have Carrie Bernstein, who is our elementary literacy coordinator, and Angie Shannon, who is the secondary literacy coordinator. Both of them are new to their positions this year, but as you will hear in the presentation, they both bring a wealth of information to support our students with literacy achievement at Southeast Polk. So we look forward to hearing from them, and I will turn it over.
That was a really big introduction. Well, we'll introduce ourselves. I'm the elementary literacy coordinator. I'm Carrie Bernstein. I've been in the district for 17 years. It's kind of crazy. Started at Centennial. This is my 23rd year of education though. I've been a 5th grade teacher, a 4th grade teacher, reading specialist. And I've taught just about everything, summer school, so. And online, 1st grade online teacher.
Bravo.
I'm very, very proud. I have some stories to share and I'm very proud of our work. Very proud.
Good evening, board and cabinet. Reintroducing myself to so many of you because I have so many familiar faces. My name is Angie Shannon. I am in my 26th year of education, 20 of those years being right here at Southeast Polk. My background is in junior high, 7th and 8th grade. I started as special education, moved to ELA, and then was able to move to the instructional coach position when we got the teacher leadership grant. And super excited this year to be working as the secondary literacy coordinator with our district. And most of that work has been focused with grades 6 through 12, ELA, social studies, content teachers who are incorporating that reading and writing into their classrooms.
All right, so on our agenda, we had a few things that we were asked to cover tonight. So we'll talk about, we talked about our role, but what is our role as literacy coordinators this year? We're going to take a look at some reading data from this year. And then we also support the reading specialists in our district. So we'll share a little bit about the role of the reading specialists. I have a really favorite quote, and I've done a lot of PD for our teachers over the years. And this is one of my favorite quotes that I always share with our teachers, just to really understand how important literacy is. So if a child memorizes 10 words, then a child can only read 10 words. But if a child learns the sounds of 10 letters, the child will be able to read 353 sound words, 4,324 sound words, and 21,655 sound words. So it's not about memorization. It's about really educating our students about how words and how our language works. So I think we've come full circle about, well, we're just looking at book words and we're just going to memorize them. We're way beyond that. So research shows that we learn much differently than that. So I think that's really, really powerful, and how important literacy foundation skills are for our students.
So we have the opportunity to share this role and responsibility through K through 5 and 6 through 12. And even though Carrie is elementary and I am secondary, I am finding myself in lots of elementary buildings learning from Carrie and from the elementary teachers of what that looks like and how I can then support those secondary teachers learning from what that looks like at the K-5 level. And Carrie is doing the same thing, getting her toes wet at the 6-12 level and seeing what does it look like at K-5 and then how can we continue to help our K-5 teachers knowing what's coming up for our teachers, our students at 612. So we've spent a lot of time really with the staff and making sure that they are implementing the Common Core literacy standards to the best of their ability, and just really helping them unpack and understand those standards. We are also working with them as they are working within their PLCs and their data teams, and they're looking at their unit pre and post tests, looking at how their kiddos are doing on those standards, and then going back and really designing and presenting professional development to those teacher teams to help them improve their instruction. The one great thing about Southeast Polk is we are working with groups of teachers who are continually looking to improve their instructional strategies. And they look at their kiddos, they look at their data, and they say, we're not there yet. What can we do differently to help them get there? And so that's where Carrie and I spend a lot of our time, is having those conversations with them and saying what's working, what's not working. If it's not working, what have you tried? And what can we do differently with that? So that's where a lot of our time happens with them. And there's some pictures up there that kind of show our professional learning community teachers together in that process.
So to continue with that, we spend a lot of time supporting teachers and analyzing data. We have a lot of data, whether that's coming from pre and post tests, whether that's from observation, standardized testing, fast testing, which we'll be sharing. But in order to make those instructional decisions, we have to know, what do the students know? What do they not know? Where do we need to go? So we spend a lot of time working with teachers to analyze the data, to fill those gaps, and to extend our students. If we're, wherever those students are, we meet their needs. And so in order to figure that out, we have to spend a lot of time analyzing the data. We have lots of diverse learners. Not one student's the same. So we have to really dig in and figure out what each child needs. We spend a lot of time helping our teachers navigate FastBridge. FastBridge is the state platform for testing and progress monitoring so fast testing happens 3 times a year. We do math and literacy. So for the literacy part of it, it looks a little different throughout the grade levels, but we do a fall, winter, and spring. And so that's where we do gather a lot of our data, but we do spend quite a bit of time analyzing it from there, making sure that our district is progress monitoring properly, making sure that the percentage of students that need to be progress monitored is happening, the percent of students who need to be tested is happening. We monitor that on a pretty weekly basis. Spent a lot of time doing that today, actually. We also look at the Panorama platform as well. So Panorama is another platform in which the state is monitoring how our data is being inputted. So the 2 programs, the 2 platforms, I'm not sure what the right words are, but the 2 platforms sort of talk to each other. So we do our testing in the FAST platform, and the data, the numbers go over to the Panorama platform. So we can look to see how individual students did. We can analyze their testing in the FAST platform. But as a district, we can see it all. We can see what percent of students were proficient, what percent of students were not. We can break it down by IEP students. We can break it down by different categories, boys, girls, like you name it. We can break that down on particular grade levels in the Panorama system. So we have to stay in compliance. We need, for our students, the goal, the state is wanting that 95% of all of our students are tested those 3 times a year. And out of that 95%, and it's 95 because, well, sometimes people are coming and going and they're sick, or they're homebound, or we have different circumstances. That's why it's the 95 rather than the 100. Our goal is always 100, of course. And then we have the students who are not proficient. Then we need to have 90% of those students progress monitored on a weekly basis. So we have to go into that platform and make sure that that's happening. And if it's not, what do we need to do? Do we need to go talk to the teachers to support them? Do we need to set up a new routine, whatever that might be, to stay in compliance with those recommendations from the state? Questions so far?
So what does progress monitoring mean?
So if we have a student that is not meeting benchmark, we want to give them an intervention or give them instruction. So then on a weekly basis, we would have them read to us and we would monitor, is our instruction working? So hopefully our goal would be that their reading fluency would increase. So we would monitor their learning each week.
Does that go back into FastBridge or is that?
Yes.
Yes.
So we do the testing in FastBridge and so then, but the numbers go over to Panorama.
So Panorama is kind of the reporting tool.
At the really big level.
Okay.
So Panorama is kind of the umbrella and FastBridge fits underneath of that. So we test here and the numbers go into the other portion. I'm not sure, maybe they should ask us the best system and put them together, but nobody ever asks.
So on these students that you do the progress monitoring, are they all IEP students?
No,
No? Okay.
the IEP students, of course, would be progress monitored for
Right.
sure, but and I'll
So the
explain how we
non-IEP
determine
students,
those.
is it kind of done like an IEP student, the progress monitoring the same, or are they different?
They would be the same, but an IEP student might have more additional things
So like an IEP student is done like every 2 weeks, is
every week.
every week. Okay, so would the other students also be every week?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep. We always want to monitor progress every week and then look at that progress monitoring, right, about every 6 to 8 weeks to determine if that intervention is effective. If it is, awesome, we're going to keep moving forward. If it's not, we need to make instructional changes.
so you say you do the fast testing 3 times a year, fall, winter, spring, which makes sense. When I'm sure most of the time, everything improves, which means everything's working, which is great. But on the rare occasions where you have students that score lower, do you kind of dig in to see what the issue is? You know, is it maybe their home life, maybe a problem with the teacher? I mean, there could be a lot of factors, environmental. I mean,
So the really awesome thing, especially here at Southeast Polk, that we have so many ways to dig deeper. We have so many tools that are in our toolbox where we can say, okay,
yeah,
if it's strictly an area of fluency, we can dig deeper and we can, is it that they can't decode the words? Do they not know sight words? Are they missing endings of words? And we can dig deeper
Right.
and instruct exactly on what they need. And we have lots of tools to be able to do that, to give instruction exactly what they need.
well, I think what you're doing is amazing, especially considering what the whole nation's been through the past 2 years, that you can keep progress monitoring and you can keep improving the literacy. We have all these other factors these past 2 years, so it's amazing that you're doing this.
Well, our teachers are definitely working really, really hard because depends on the building. In certain buildings, the reading specialists, and there's usually depends 2 or 3 reading specialists in building, handle all the progress monitoring of the students that are needing that. In other buildings, the classroom teacher is doing the progress monitoring and the reading specialist is supporting that. Just depends on how each building is organized. So they're working really hard in order to make sure that they're looking at the data, they're giving the progress monitoring and adjusting instructions. So kudos to everyone.
Yeah. For sure. So when you say reading and literacy, is literacy writing, math? What's,
I would say, so, right, reading and literacy, well, reading would be the act of doing it. Literacy is the act of understanding all the phonics, the phonemic awareness, and all the pieces and parts that go into it.
oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So they do a lot of checking for understanding, a lot of,
Yeah, if we don't have a good foundation of
Right.
phonics, phonemic awareness, being able to understand what letters make sounds and what the combinations are, we won't even get to the comprehension. We've got to be
Right.
able to read the words.
well, it's amazing we have this program because in my past, kid could maybe read it, but they had no clue what they just read. And that's sad. And what does it matter if they can read it if they can't understand it?
Angie and I
Yeah.
think, thankfully to everybody,
Yeah.
we were able to take a class, a week-long course in January, right when we came back from winter break. And our minds are blown still. Just thinking about, we spent a whole week learning about Greek and Latin morphemes and how all of that is impacting and being able, our teachers were sharing the information. They're just like you're never gonna believe, here, you should have seen me look at this word. I look at every word differently now, and I think
Yeah.
in order for kids to comprehend, they have to understand the meaning of the words.
Mhm.
It's more than just, I can read the passage and pick out pieces and parts, but to really understand it.
Sounds like a great program.
Wasn't it Mrs. Robbins from Centennial? Didn't she come and?
That was part of it. Yep. So we
Yeah,
took
okay.
like the next class up,
Yeah.
and she was with us when we did that in January.
Okay.
Yep.
I was thinking
You guys got to play in the sand.
I was trying to
Yes.
visualize who it was.
Yes.
Yeah. It was.
Mhm. Yeah, Centennial brought that.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
When,
And that's
when
happening
was
a
this-
lot in our K2 classrooms.
So when was this like transition, like the quote you had up there where we were memorizing words before and now we're really trying to get a deeper understanding of like how language works? Like, is that something that's been like a slow transition over a long period of time?
So we think about the idea of whole language. Many of us went to school and they said, here's a book, go ahead and read it. And now we know that structured literacy and being systematic and intentional and teaching every sound and the patterns in which the letters, putting all of the different combinations together and actually teaching how words work is what our brains need, rather than here's some words and you need to memorize it and now we're going to put it in a book. So the best research is right now, the brain research is coming out and we're moving away from that whole language into structured literacy.
Thank you.
I just think this is an amazing program. I'm a big nerd, so I just love breaking down words and recombining words and phonics and all that. So just instilling that in our kids it's just going to help them out so much. And even with learning other languages, because other languages, I speak a little bit of German, and it's all based off of understanding the parts of the word, not necessarily the whole word. So it definitely helps with that too. So you're teaching really good skills, and I'm glad you guys are here.
You
I
can
still
finish your
struggle with
program.
Italian and Italian.
Russian's hard for me too.
Oh, I know.
So let's.
Just discuss.
Just.
All right, so we're gonna take a look at some reading data, and the one thing, and Angie's gonna share this, but I wanted to share, and I should have made it clear, but we kind of got on a roll there. So when I'm talking about this fast testing, it is a screener. Okay, so we have a couple different parts to it. What we really focus on is the early literacy. The K2 is like where we have to really pay close attention. We need our K2 core and our K2 literacy to be super strong, so we can build that foundation. So the fast testing is a screener. What does that mean? A screener means that it's meant to give to a large number of students in a short amount of time. It's meant to find out who's at benchmark, who's falling out on the top, and who's not meeting that benchmark. Okay, so we use it in that manner, right? It helps distinguish that. But we also use it to determine how is our core instruction, where do we need to improve our core instruction? And then, so we're not only meeting individual students' needs by this and by identifying the students who need help, but we can also identify areas of core instruction that would need to be beefed up as well. Okay, does that make sense? So it's a screener. It's different than giving ISAS, where that is a long, intensive test. This is meant to be given in a short amount of time, 3 times a year.
The nice thing about the panorama system is we no longer just have our data, but we collect data from the entire state. So our data goes in there, but we can also see others. We're pretty competitive with ourselves and with others. And so it's always nice to be able to see what does K-3 look like in the fall and the winter, and what's the typical growth of students in the state of Iowa that were tested. And then where do we fall within that? We want all of our students to make growth from fall to winter to spring. We like to see between 2 to 4 percentage points growth. That's showing us that they're, making that moderate growth or above with that. So that was, yes. It's like always interject whenever.
Something that's kind of unique and something to know is that when you are looking at the fall, winter, and spring scores, we get growth in the scores, but what also changes is the benchmark, because we expect that kids are going to do better. So some kids might grow 5 words, but the benchmark is growing 8 words. So as we look at that growth, if we see a student, I think Ricky said earlier that maybe didn't make growth, we have to determine, did they make growth, but not at the pace you would expect at that grade level. So it lets you dig in a little bit deeper. So the norms do get higher in both the winter and spring.
Yeah, we should have said.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah, so it's kind of about 2 to 3 points growth. It comes out with like a raw score, so it's like 483, and then by winter they should be at 486, and then by, they should be at 490 by the end of the year. So we're wanting our kids to kind of make that typical growth. Again, we've got students who start below the benchmark. They need to make more growth than their peers in order to catch up and to close that gap within there. This only goes through 3rd grade because our state only reports out through 3rd grade. I do have 4th and 5th grade data, and they 4th grade was at 66% meeting benchmark in the fall and 68% meeting benchmark in the winter. So they made 2% growth. And then our 5th grade for the state growth, yes, was they 67% met benchmark in the fall and 68% met benchmark in the winter. So 1% of those students grew from fall to winter. So just kind of nice to have that as our comparison, and to be able to, again, then analyze our data and see where do we fall within the state data there.
And the K2, so when we're looking at the K2 testing and doing that, the K2 is really focusing on those foundational skills, the phonemic awareness skills and the phonics, which phonemic awareness in a little quick term is like rhyming, and phonics would be sounding outwards. Okay. As you move through the grades, the 3 through 5 is focusing on more advanced phonics and then adding in the fluency and comprehension. And then when you get to 6, 7, and 8, we're focusing on vocabulary comprehension, always within keeping in mind oral reading fluency, which is our ultimate goal. Because if we're reading fluently, we can comprehend. All right, so before we jump into our data, because we always know that there's room to improve, and we have been through a lot of craziness over the last 2 years, I wanted to share some personal successes because some of our students had some alternate learning opportunities last year. And I was one of the 3 first grade online teachers last year, and it was an experience like nothing other. First of all, I'm very proud that the online teachers built a school in 5 days. And I only say 5 because we should have had 4, but we had Memorial Day. So 5 days we built a school, and it was a joy. It was the hardest thing I have ever done in my whole entire life. And on the flip side, it is the proudest thing I've ever done in my whole entire life. I might cry because I'm that passionate about it. I had this opportunity to go into people's homes, right? Maybe it was daycare, maybe it was grandma and grandpa, whoever was that child. Because I usually had an adult, hopefully most of the time, pretty close by with a 6-year-old. And it was so cool because over the years, 20 years of teaching, I've never had a relationship with parents like I did last year, where they'd be like, hey, Mrs. Bernstein, how you doing? Like I got a parent joining in so that for the phonics lesson on Monday, so they can help their child through the whole week. So that was so cool. And I do keep in touch with quite a few of my students. So we went the whole school year, and in May, we finally got to meet in person. We went to Thomas Mitchell Park, and almost all of our students, at the end of the year, I think we still had 85 or 86 students. At one point, I think our highest number as first grade only was 120. That was a challenge for the 3 of us, but we managed it. And these are some great pictures. I'm the one in the bottom running around with the kids. So. And then I have a whole stack of emails. I kept emails because those days when it's really hard and you had to pull it out. So I got that this year from a student last year. So I wanted to take a moment to read this to you. And if I cry, I'm going to try not to. So this child is a second grader now. I just had to share a little bit about my child's year. I just had to share a little bit about my child this year. Since you worked so very hard last year with all of the kiddos, it didn't go unnoticed. He has done so well this year. I was a little nervous for him on how he would transition, but he was so ready to go back to the building and be around teachers and friends. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. He has received 40 on his addition time test. That's the goal, just so you know. 40 on the addition time test twice now, and he just came home with a 39 on his subtraction time test. He's doing so well in math, and he is enjoying it. His reading has improved so much. He even tries to teach his kindergarten brother all of the phonics rules when he's trying to sound out words. He is choosing books for himself to read that are much bigger than I would ever think he could, and he proves me wrong every time. I'm just so grateful for all of the work that you guys did last year, and I wanted to share how well he is doing this year because of your perseverance throughout all of the years and all throughout the year and all of the rough times. So that one is near and dear to my heart. So just to share again, before we just jump into our data, because I do know, especially as reading specialists, we've got some gains to make, right? And soon as we've got these gains done, the next one's gonna come. But this particular student that I just read, when he started in first grade in the fall for oral reading fluency, he was reading 12 words per minute. I worked with him for the whole school year in whole group and small group. And at the end of the year, he was reading 77 words per minute. That was exceeding the benchmark. Starting in second grade, he was reading 65 words per minute, and now he's up to 84 words per minute with a goal of 101, and he's already on his way. So another student that was a real success, this student started at 0 words per minute in the fall, and she is now reading 106 words per minute. So it's possible. Jumping into our literacy data.
So this is looking at just our kiddos here at Southeast Polk. We've kind of already talked about the state. And again, this is showing the percent of students that were meeting that benchmark, and that changes from fall to winter. We had 78% of our kindergarten students meeting benchmark at the fall, and 88% were meeting benchmark at the winter. And then you can kind of see first grade, 72% and 68% were meeting benchmark. The last time they were tested, they were just tested the last part of January, and we were just like looking at all of the data coming back early February. They take about 3 weeks sometimes to get those little kiddos tested, and they're doing the reading and the math. So to kind of break it all up so that they're not sitting for long periods of time doing this testing, it's in shorter bits throughout the time period. Second grade started at 65% meeting benchmark and moved to 67. Third grade started at 71% and has moved to 74%. Fourth grade, 77% and has moved to 75%. And fifth grade, 76% and moved to 74%.
And there's often a dip in the winter, so that isn't something that it's small and we never want it, but it does often happen. That's not like, oh my gosh, because of this, because of COVID, but there's often a dip in the winter. The standards are moving up higher. We are like shoving a lot of learning into, kind of putting it all together. So that is not what we want, but not unusual either.
Does winter break do you think have an effect? I know summer is a challenge. When you come back the next year, there's a lot of kids have learning loss over the summer. Is the winter break have an effect like that?
Maybe for some kiddos, especially our students that are going to fall in the special education program, possibly. I don't know that in the general, the younger the student, I would say the larger the impact. And it might depend on what's happening at home if they're spending that extra time. I'm not saying that parents, but if you're reading with your kiddo or talking with them, it's going to make a difference.
So do you think that dip's more reflective of the rising benchmark than it is that they're not reading less well than they were before. It's just that the standard keeps going up.
Yeah. Yeah, and we find by the time we get to the end of the year, we kind of caught up to that, but there's that small dip in this month and then it gets back up by where they need to be at the end.
So are you guys coming back to present in the spring? Will we see those
Sure.
numbers?
Yeah. we will definitely
I mean,
share that.
not to put anything on the agenda, not my job, but I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if we're gonna see those numbers, because it would be interesting to see what they end up as.
Yeah, and we share this data with our building leaders, our teachers, all of that data goes right back to them also. The secondary literacy data is a little different. The state database that Carrie was talking about, Panorama, goes up through 6th grade. We have data to see for 7th and 8th grade, but it looks a little different. With that, we don't necessarily see fall to winter and the change with that. At 7th and 8th grade, they show the school year, the 2021-2022 school year. So I'm assuming that they're taking the most recent data, even though we still pull fall to winter and look at that. So just kind of share our data and then I'll share the state data with that. Our 6th grade students to start the year, and this was taken again shortly after Labor Day. They were at 77% were meeting that benchmark, and they went to 75% meeting benchmark. Our 7th grade students were at 74% meeting benchmark, and they are currently at 76% meeting benchmark. And our 8th grade students were at 69% benchmark. And kind of depending on the day and the number of students tested, we went between 69 and 70% meeting benchmark. So if a student was absent and we tested a student, it kind of went up to 70%. And then another student was present and we tested them, we kind of averaged back out and set back down to 69%. So kind of went back and forth. Just kind of compare with the state. Our 6th grade at the state of Iowa in the fall, 63% were proficient, and the winter 66% were proficient. So we are, sorry, I keep saying proficient. I want to say meeting benchmark. I get so used to saying proficiency with standards-based grading. I have to remind myself of my words here. So 9% of our students were more meeting benchmark than what the state was there. 7th grade, 54% were meeting benchmark versus our 76%, and 8th grade, 52% and our 69%. So we kind of like to just have that number to go back and compare with that.
Good job.
So like Carrie said, now that we've got the data, that's great. We've got this wonderful system. What do we do with that? And the very first thing we do when we share that data with our teachers is we really start to dig deeper. And like Carrie said, students who aren't making progress, who have not met the benchmark, we want to be able to figure out what skills do they have, what skills do they not have, and how can we put interventions in place that are going to help them get to where they are. So there's lots of in-classroom informal diagnostic tools that they can use for that. There's sometimes data there where we've got students who haven't been in school and they've missed 25 days of school. Well, that's going to interfere with them making progress. There's other kiddos that we know have some social emotional things going on in their lives. And so we take all of those things into consideration. We look at the whole child, but then we also think, well, what can we do for that intervention when we have that kiddo and they are present? What can we do instructionally to help them get to where they need to be? So that's kind of that making informed decisions. We look at filling the gaps, but we're also looking at our kiddos who are at benchmark or above. What can we do to continue to accelerate that learning for them? We don't want to have a one size fits all. It's each individual kiddo and where are they at? And our kiddos who we know are way above benchmark, what can we do to continue to have them show that growth? Like Carrie said, we're monitoring that student progress. Any student who falls below benchmark, they have an intervention put in place, and we continue to do that progress monitoring, and we go back and look at that weekly progress monitoring. Is that intervention working? Do we need to make adjustments, or do we need to keep going? And we give about 3-4 weeks, look back at that data, going well, making progress, 3 to 4 more weeks, going well, make progress. And we continue to do that between each of the screening periods. And then continuing to collaborate. Oftentimes that means bringing in lots of different people. We work with our classroom teachers, work with our reading specialists. A lot of those kiddos do have IEPs for their English language learners. So when you're having this conversation, you often sometimes have 5 or 6 people working with that kiddo and helping them make those instructional decisions. And what is it going to look like when the general ed classroom? What is it going to look like when they're working with pullout with the reading specialist? What is it going to look like when they go to their instructional time in the small group setting with their special ed teacher? How can the instructional coach within that building work with that classroom teacher to bump up their instructional skills and strategies? You know, there's just so many factors that come into play with that. And our kiddos who are excelling, what can our tag teacher do with them in that small group setting? Or what can that classroom teacher do when they're doing MTSS and they have kids moving into smaller groups? What is my kiddos who are struggling? What's that small group going to look like? What's my group of my students who are excelling? What can that small group instruction look like?
So while we've been talking, I'm thinking, wow, I hope they realize how passionate we are. Since we've taken up more time than it took on all of those. Sorry about that. All right. So one of the things, the question was, well, how do we know? Like we're moving from that whole language into very systematic. So we really want to, our instruction wants to be systematic and explicit. I think about, we don't leave it up to guess. We're not going to hand them the book and hopefully they get it. We're going to be super systematic. We're going to teach them this. We're going to teach them the next thing. We're going to go from most common to least common. So we want to be super systematic about that and give that guided practice. We definitely utilize MTSS, multi-tiered system of support. So if whether to meet the needs of if it's unfinished learning or we're meeting the core needs or we're moving beyond. So that would be a small group instruction using MTSS. And then we squeeze every moment of a child's day and our day into is like, there aren't any moments wasted. So we want to ensure as many learning opportunities as possible. All right.
So we also work with our reading specialist. Again, Carrie kind of mentioned we have within the district several positions for that. At K through 5, we have 20. At Spring Creek, our 6th grade building, we have 1 reading specialist, and we are fortunate to have 1 at the 9-10 level that works with our high school students.
Having 1 at Spring Creek and 1 at 9-10, is that enough?
I think the distribution of those reading specialists, of course, we'd always like to have.
I'd always like to have more,
than
but
that, but the research is really strong that the biggest predictor of success in reading in the later grades is being proficient by the end of 3rd grade.
Right.
So in looking at where we distribute reading specialists, we over distribute them at the K3 level because we know that we have a greater chance of success. Now, if those who didn't get there, we still keep working with them as they go through, but that's why you see the distribution look the way that it does.
a preventative measure versus the reactive measure with that. Again, hoping that by the time our kiddos get from the secondary level, they're not needing as much support in that area.
So you just said something, you said preventative instead of reactive. And I really appreciate that because it's so hard to catch up when you're a kid and there's so many other things going on. So, and you also said earlier, you look at the whole child, and that's very, that makes me happy. So as you're doing good.
So their role, they really, again, are getting to know each one of their kiddos. They're looking at their strengths and their weaknesses. Once they've identified those weaknesses, then they are going to move into creating those intervention plans. They're using research-based strategies. Like Carrie said, they are not leaving it up for guesswork. They are using a very systematic and explicit instruction, and we're monitoring that progress weekly to make sure that that instruction is working.
So we do have a targeted audience for our reading specialists. They're not working with whole classrooms of students. They are working typically with groups of 6 to 8 students. We want to keep the group small. And these students are identified through our FAST testing. They can also be supported in other manners and identified in other ways. But when we're doing these testing, and I want to make sure that this is clear because I'm going to use the term at risk. So I know that Amy Anderson had an opportunity to share with you a couple weeks ago, and we also have students identified at risk. So when students take the FAST test, and the very first time that they are not meeting the benchmark, they're considered at risk. That's the designation that we give them. They are an at-risk student, whether that's, we want to pay attention, right? We want to know that they might need social emotional needs, but in this testing period, they were at risk. They did not meet benchmark. So if that was in the fall, then in the winter, we give the assessment again. If they are not meeting benchmark 2 times in a row, then they move to persistently at risk. It's the category in which we give them. Our reading specialists, the goal is to work with students who are at risk and persistently at risk. If that number is too large, we're going to take the most intense students first. So they are required in K3 to work with students that are persistently at risk. And it takes 2, so if they were persistently at risk, because it took 2 times, it takes 2 times to not be to benchmark to get out of that category. So we want to ensure that that they've got it. Does that make sense with those designations?
So there's no doubt we need reading specialists, and no doubt we do a good job. My question, because you brought up the word at risk, aren't some of our kids at risk in math as well?
We do have Title Math that support those students.
Because when we visited the high school a few weeks ago, and Mr. Pettit spent a lot of time talking about the MTSS program, he said that there's a lot of kids that have to go to the math teacher in great numbers. Seems like they should have some type of support like you're doing with the reading specialist. So you just were telling me something about math. What?
So we have some of our reading specialists are paid, so they have that base salary.
Right.
And then they're paid through a grant. Some of them are paid one way, and some of them are paid through at-risk funds, and some are paid through title funds.
Yeah. And I think, our look tonight, Rick, that's exactly right. Our look tonight is really through the literacy window.
Okay.
We'll have Jane Beecham come at a future meeting, and she will share with the map data.
Okay.
4 of our elementary buildings, as Carrie said, are identified as Title I. So in 4 of our buildings, we have Title I math teachers who work with those students at risk. When we work with the other 4 buildings, we work with all those people around the table, as I said earlier, and work with usually teams to provide those interventions.
Okay, thank you.
But Jane will be here to give more specific.
So when you have an at-risk student in one area, that student is also probably at risk in other areas too. Is that right?
Possibly.
Okay, and so that's when the team comes into play.
Well, we always have teams for everything, but when we're analyzing the data, if those kids are at risk or persistently at risk, if they're working with a reading specialist, they're working in small group with their classroom. So there are multiple people coming together to talk, and we're going to group kids according to their needs. So we've gotten really, really good at that. It's great if I have 6 kids, but if they've all got different things going on, that's not going to help our instruction. It's not going to help them. So we work really hard to group students with similar reading needs so that we can move it forward.
Good.
Any questions so far? We're almost done.
So at the secondary level, that looks just a little different with their building and the way that their day is structured. They're more class by class, period by period. So at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade buildings, they have an MTSS time. At 6th grade, it's called win time. At the junior high, it's called flex time. And at the high school level, it's actually a course that they take. They get their English elective for that. So they still go to their English block every single day. They get 90 minutes of ELA in their ELA classroom with their general ed teacher, their co-taught classroom. And then on top of that, those students receive additional instruction in that small group setting. Right now at the 6th grade building, that happens 4 days a week, 30 minutes a day. She meets with each team. There's the innovators and I can't remember all of their names right now.
I used to
The
be
leaders,
trees.
the leaders, the innovators, and achievers. So she's got that group. They've got an hour of MTSS time, and she's able to pull groups for 30 minutes, send them back, and then pull another group for 30 minutes. And she does that 4 days a week. On the day that she's not pulling them, it's their 2-hour late start, and that's where she's doing all of their progress monitoring. At the 7th and 8th grade, they still go to English. They have their English block. So they might be in English period 1, 2. Opposite of their lunch, they all have a flex. It's 30 minutes a day. And those kiddos are going for that instruction. And again, at the high school, it's a normal class for those 9th and 10th grade students. So they see their reading specialist, Shannon Susie, for 90 minutes every other day. And they do receive an English credit for that course. And again, that instruction might just look a little different than what it does at that elementary level. We do have some students who are still working on decoding, especially multisyllabic words. We have to know how to, first of all, correctly read that word, but then, like Carrie said, being able to go back down and break that word apart to say, what does the meaning of that word? You can see there in the picture on Tuesday, those were 7th grade students who were breaking down the word continental and trying to really understand the passage that they were reading for their fluency was about the continental United States. And then, so what does that mean? How do we know? Looking at the prefix con, looking at the suffix of that. And then, okay, well, when we say continental United States, what are we talking about? Oh, okay, with and together. Okay, well, which 2 states would not be part of the continental United States? And being able to go back and build that knowledge of words with them. Comprehension, after they do some reading, there's lots of questions about making sure that they understood that text. And they do a lot of marking their text up, close reading, informational text. If we can get them looking at science and social studies types of text, that's going to help them in their content areas, not just their ELA classroom with that. So those were some of the activities that were happening. That was just this week in there on top of instruction.
Can I ask, what is close reading?
Close reading to me is just doing exactly that, reading the text very closely.
Okay.
Being aware of what you're reading while you're reading it and stopping to be able to say, wait, what just happened? Why did the author do that? What
Okay.
was the purpose? What effect did that have on the text? Ooh, there's a word I don't know. Can I use other words around that to help me figure it out?
Okay.
You know, just kind of really being metacognitive while you're reading.
And does that also include grammar? And I remember back in the day, we diagrammed sentences, and I probably not a thing anymore. But do you guys work on grammar and commas and semicolons and what all that means with the thought and the flow?
Within their ELA classroom, they do, but not within this setting.
Okay.
But yes, within their ELA classroom, they do.
Got you.
So we have the opportunity, a really cool opportunity to lead and support all of those reading specialists in our district. So our reading specialists meet, we lead them and meet with them about 6 to 8 times a year. It's about once a month-ish, depending on what's going on during that month. When we're meeting, we're looking at our data. That's number one, looking at data. Where do we need to go? We are researching, I'm providing, Angie and I, and they're bringing in their own. What are the latest research-based strategies? Let's share. If we've got something great going on at Centennial, let's share it at Delaware, wherever that case might be. So we're sharing all the different strategies that are happening in our district. We definitely want them to be effective though. So we want to talk about, I've tried this, I tried that, didn't work. So we want to find out which ones are the most effective. We're demonstrating for each other. So we're learning from each other. And we're problem solving all together. All the time. And then not only that, but we're having collaboration throughout the year. The reading specialists, I've set up a website for the reading specialists so they can talk to each other. They can access all of the stuff that they need. And so they are collecting data and collaborating throughout that whole school year, even if they're not in the same building.
Everything that they bring to their meetings for effective reading strategies, or they demonstrate, all of those resources are compiled there on their website. So it's been really easy for them to be able to go back and learn from each other, but then take that into their own classrooms with their kids. Oftentimes it's more of a one-on-one coaching. The student, is struggling and the reading specialist wants to dig a little deeper. They want to talk through it with just Carrie or I, or both of us at the same time. So we will go in, problem solve with that teacher. Sometimes that leads to us doing a classroom demonstration that can be with the teacher, and then the teacher feeling comfortable enough to do that on her own, or us coming in and doing that demonstration with the kids and the teacher watching. And then the next time we go back, the teacher does it and we watch and provide feedback with one another. And then just providing guidance on, okay, let's look at, our third grade kiddos. What are we noticing? Let's pull their progress monitoring charts. Are we seeing any growth? And if we're seeing growth, what's been working? And if we are kind of stagnant, we're not making growth, what have we tried and what can we try? So that's been really nice. I know Carrie's done quite a bit of that with building leadership teams at the elementary levels and being able to bring together the second grade team and looking at their kids who have fallen below benchmark. They've been doing the intervention, and for all of the second grade team to be sitting around the table with their instructional coach and Carrie and the reading support, teacher and everybody there on the same page. And if we need to talk about, how do we group them, or what instructional strategies are we using, or how could we beef up or change that instructional strategy for those kids. So just always there to be a sounding board, but also if they get to the point where they start to problem solve and they're wanting input from us, then we have guidance to help them with that using the data that they brought to the table for us.
So with all of your data points, if you start to see a trend happening, do you, and it's not necessarily anything that the reading specialists are doing, but maybe the teachers in the schools, do you go back and collaborate with those guys and say, hey, we see this happening?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to ask ourselves, is this a core problem? Is it happening within the general education classroom with all students?
Right.
Or is this, something that we can fix within just the intervention? And oftentimes, if it's 2 or 3 kiddos, that might be an intervention that's necessary. But if it's 28 of our kiddos,
Right.
it's not an intervention, it's a core issue. So we want to be able to know what's happening there. And again, going back to what does your core instruction look like? Are you using those systematic explicit strategies? How often are you doing them? How many minutes are you doing them? What does that look like when you do them? So sometimes it's a matter of going back and reflecting on that piece of it also.
So you have a good back and forth with everybody, then they don't just expect you to stay with the reading specialist.
No.
Okay, good.
No, everybody's fair game. So kind of wrapping it all up, obviously with, like we've mentioned, the pandemic has taken a hit for all of us. We're aware of that, but we are being as proactive as possible. I want to always make sure that I'm focusing on the strengths and having that asset-based mindset with our kids. I can, look at a kiddo and we can all identify deficits that a student may or may not have due to the pandemic, but they also all have strengths within each and every one of them. And, we all lost different things during the pandemic, but we all gained tremendous things during the pandemic. And I think that's what's most important with this, is looking at each individual student as just that, an individual, and meeting them where they are, no matter where that is. It's not for me to make excuses about where they are, but okay, this is where you are. Now it's our job to get you here. And we're going to meet you where you are, and we're going to take you to that next step. So our focus has just been explicit, systematic, high quality instruction. And what does your MTSS look like? You've got this many minutes a day. What are you doing with it? And how are you going to get them there with that time?
The one last thing, as part of our role is to provide that professional development. We've had lots of great opportunities. And I want to say thank you, because at Southeast Polk, we have this really amazing opportunity for extending our learning as teachers. We have so many opportunities, and now we're being able to create Southeast Polk University, which is another tremendous thing. And I'm sure you might hear more about that.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry. But we need to keep giving our teachers professional learning to help our students. So that's part of our role, which we absolutely love every day to have that opportunity to do that. And I do remember that Joellen told us it was supposed to be about 8 to 10 minutes.
She forgot we're English teachers.
You overachieved, you guys are great.
And we sat through a lot of numbers.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I kept looking at Carrie going.
Definitely exceeded benchmark.
Before you sit down, thank you to you two. I mean, it's amazing what you two do, and we're lucky to have you. It's probably not possible, but it'd be nice if you could collaborate with other districts. Not that you need to learn anything, but I think a lot of other districts could learn from you two. So that's a huge compliment. And Carrie, I'm gonna remember this probably for the rest of my career, that you built a school in 5 days. That's amazing. So,
When you think you can't do something.
Yeah.
The people in the office, when I'm sitting
Yeah.
with Jane Beecham and we're, whatever's happening, and I'm like, you know what, we can do
Yeah.
it because we built a school in 5 days.
Yeah. So thank you.
She says she built a school in 5 days. And last year when I was at the junior high and I had teachers teaching in the classroom and teaching online and doing all of these different things, I kept saying, it's okay. We're building the plane as we're flying it, but we're gonna get there. You know, so I'm like, she built a school. I was building a plane and flying it at the same time with those teachers, but
We made it.
we got there and we're still driving. So
Thank you guys. You have
Thank
a lot of
goodness.
Thank
passion
you.
and I can
Thank
tell
you.
that you're
Just want to
into it.
close by thanking them. We're just so very fortunate to have their expertise and their passion. And I know we took some time, but I can't think of anything more valuable than children's literacy, not in church, children's literacy, to be able to support them and build that foundation. Just one thing I wanted to add, they did all the really cool stuff, and I'll add the state, compliance stuff. So the things that they just described, those are required for K-3. So that's a state chapter 62. It is a requirement. But as a district, when we visited with building leaders and teachers, we opted to extend it at first through 6th grade, because we felt this is important for everyone and we need to follow this longitudinal data and support kids all the way through. And after we did it through 6th grade, they said, well, we have it up through 8th grade. And our junior high folks said, yep, we want to do it too. And they said they have learned so much about their kids and we have seen some really good growth. We would keep going, but the test stops at 8th grade. So I really want to commend them that there are some compliance things that we do, but our teachers saw value in what that could do for kids and they opted to take it further than that. So I just want to give them a shout out for that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Chance now, wanna leave.
We're in for the long haul.
Oh, dedication.
You're up, Mr. Pecom.
Thank you. First item is the monthly financial reports through the month of January. Just a few notes here. Revenues are up 4.1% through January. Our income tax surtax is higher than it was last year for our first payment, which is good news from an economic standpoint. Remember that our income surtax is 5% on when you start doing your personal income taxes, that 5% surtax is on there. That is a component of, just taking it all the way back, the instructional support levy. We have X dollars amounts to get to the instructional support levy. The more we get within the income surtax, the less money we have to gather from property tax. So that's a good thing from an overall property tax rate. Equipment breakdown insurance continues to be a pretty good thing through technology and the building and grounds department. And then the CARES funding, we have another $2.9 million to go through the end of 2024. So that's helped us out quite a bit. Expenditures are up 1.1%. Our personnel costs, wages and benefits are up 2.2% of that. Transportation costs have been a bit higher this year. We've hired in some mechanics to kind of help us go through some of the repairs process, and our repairs costs have been a bit higher in the general fund as well. Any questions on the general fund before I move to the all funds? Let's be quick as well. All funds revenues are up 7.6% net of the bond proceeds from last year. Our save revenue, this is our sales tax penny money, is up 28%. That's due to a pretty high reconciliation payment from last year that we got in November this year. Some changes to that in the 22-23 session will be that instead of getting estimated payments throughout the month, we're supposed to be getting actual payments now. And then at the end of the term, we'll have a more accurate number of what to cinch back to and reconcile to. So that's good. Our expenditures are up 28%. A lot of that has to do with facilities and acquisitions, the construction costs we're doing now, construction items we're doing now, and also food service costs. Those are in the non-instructional area. Those are up about 50% or so. Food costs are up, distribution's up, all those things go along with that. Any questions on the financials? Okay. I'll move straight to the budget if you don't mind, Mr. Crab.
It's all good news. Come on.
This is great news. So you have a version, we just updated this version here. I was working on it throughout this week and some things have changed. And since I published this again to the assembly site, we found out that the governor has actually signed the bill. So there's some slides in here that may not be pertinent anymore. This is the first look at the 22-23 budget. Again, just to go through what our district funds are, those are the funds as listed. The ones that are asterisked are the ones that have an effect within our income tax rates, our sales tax, excuse me, our district tax rate. The budget drivers. Supplemental state aid, which we know now is 2.5%. That drives what our cost per pupil is. Our certified enrollment that occurred in last October drives our budget for next year as well. Now, as we talk about these things here, these budget drivers, this is regular program dollars in the general fund. We're not talking about save at this point in time. We're just talking about general fund dollars, regular program dollars, okay? Wages and benefits agreements. This is going to be the first year after coming off of essentially a 5-year agreement with both CPA and ASME that will go to the collective bargaining table. So that will be interesting. Chapter 20 tells us we can only bargain on permissive language, which is basically just wages. Other program funding, local, state, and federal, and then what you all think here as a board, what we need to look into or talk about or maybe add programming wise. Supplemental state aid, again, 2.5% for the governor. The Senate and House agreed back a couple of days ago on the 15th. There's also a $5 formula equity there. There's a for cost per pupil, some districts are different than other districts. We are kind of at that level where we are lower in cost per pupil than, excuse me, higher than cost per pupil than other districts, but this $5 gets everybody kind of back to the same level that we're down before. It's not very much money for us. We'll see that here a little bit later. I haven't heard more about the $19.2 million supplemental money. If that does go through, gets passed, that's about $39 per student as well. Transportation equity, that's not a lot of dollars for us, but that's for any kind of school district or any school district that their average cost to transport a student is higher than state average. This money helps them bring those costs back down to the state average. 2 years ago, last year, we got $6,000. This year, we got $60,000. I don't think it's anything more significant than that for the 23 school year.
Is the 19.2 million, is that one-time funding?
That is one-time supplemental funding. Yes, thank you.
It is, and just to jump in, the House passed that, but it's sitting in Ways and Means in the Senate and it hasn't been acted on, but it means since the House did pass it, it stays alive through the first final.
So what do we know? That's an increase. The supplemental state aid of 2.5% is an increase of $181 per student for a total cost per student of $7,408. Certified enrollment, we know that now. It's an increase of 113.61 students based on comparing it to last year. Now, if you look at last year and this year, as far as certified enrollment, that's only an increase of the 2-year average of 32 students. So that's not a big jump as we talk about loss of funding from the previous year to the increased funding for this year. We do have net positive open enrollment. As far as weighting, we have students in ELL slightly up and then preschool students up as well. Again, from a wages to benefits standpoint, we have the bargaining groups talking to them this year for negotiations. Our preliminary medical and dental claims this year show that we do not have to have an increase in those benefits, which is good. We made some choices. We switched from, as you know, we switched from the well-marked third-party provider to a UMR, United Healthcare, third-party provider. That helped out with the fixed cost piece of it. But claims has also not have been, the claims have not come true based on projections they've had as well. So that's good news from a member standpoint, from a district standpoint. Yes, Mr. Andy? Just yawning already?
Well, I do have a question. I was going
Yes.
to finish. You must be reading my mind.
I'm sure it's the same kind of question I have based on what I've been hearing.
Yeah, but
IPERS contributions rates remain the same. That's something we control. That's something that IPERS controls. And actually their unfunded liability, which has been a big thing that we talked about, has actually gone up pretty significantly. I think it was at 82-83% in the previous year. I don't know if you've gotten your newsletters from IPERS, but they're up at 88% now, which is it's a big dollar amount. So that's great. The employee and employer rate has stayed the same for that. So look at this. I had the 0% here, which we thought could have happened if nothing happened, if the governor didn't sign it, but that is gone now. So don't look at 0% SSA anymore. The 2.5% is where we're at. Based on that, based on the formula equity money of $35,000, our new money is $2,145,000. Current increases the salaries and benefits as projected. Current increases in non-personnel costs, we're looking at about $2,490,000, which leaves a budget deficit of about $345,000 should everything stay the same.
So how do you make those projections? That's the increase that you think that we're going to end up spending for the
Correct.
next year.
Correct.
So we're in the hole right now, to be clear, $345,000.
Based on projections, correct. Based on our assumptions of salaries and benefits, based on assumptions of non-personnel costs, yes. So additional considerations, if we talk about staff requests, whether it be enrollment growth, program growth, or the funding sources. Other funding sources such as ESSER funds, we talked about at-risk recently, those would be non-regular program dollars. So we want to look at non-regular program funding sources to not affect what we're talking about for the 345,000 deficit. The COVID has a funding cliff that is supposed to be spent by 2024 September. And then considerations for unspent spending authority and solvency. Our unspent spending authority at the end of last fiscal year was 17.4%, leaving everything the same, not changing anything when it comes to our projections or assumptions. I would expect a slight reduction in spending authority because of where we're at with the revenues and projected expenditures. Same thing with the solvency ratio. So that talks about how the authority that we have to spend. Now let's talk about how we gain that money. So this slide, the next two slides are a really important concept. You've seen this before. But this is the old concept of what has happened prior to the 22-23 fiscal year. So you see the uniform levies there, the commercial industrial rollback is still there. The PTRP, which is the property tax relief payments, are still there, and the additional levy. So as you look at this, we're talking about 540 on our uniform levy, which is our property taxes. Then to get up to 87.5%, the rest of that bucket is filled with C&I rollback, commercial industrial rollback, or state aid. That's how we get to the 87.5%. Anything on top of that, then is something we garner through property taxes to get the full funnel of funding for that particular student. Fast forward for next year, 22-23, this changes slightly. Commercial industrial rollback goes away. It doesn't affect the general fund because state aid's picking that up. You had the 540 uniform levy, that is still there. State aid is now picking up to 88.4% rather than 87.5%. So the state aid is giving us more dollars to get up to that amount in which every school district has in addition, in regards to the state foundation aid formula. So now instead of 17.5% of tax flexibility on top, we now have a difference of 11.6%. So the idea is, from a state standpoint, is statewide reduction of property taxes. That's the idea. We have less flexibility in what we can do from a revenue standpoint, and Right now, the state is backfilling a commercial industrial rollback. And that helps the general fund, but it hurts other funds. We can get that, we'll get to that a little bit later. Any questions about this? This is the big concept, state aid, we talk about every year. I know Ms. McIntosh, this is, if there's anything to take out of stuff, this is it, right? The funding.
That's why I sent you so many emails.
Yes.
So the 2.5% increase, is part of that commercial industrial amount?
That's different.
Okay.
Yeah, the 2.5% is straight just on the cost of the district cost per pupil.
That's on the full stack.
That's correct.
Okay,
Correct.
got it.
Next, Jason. So just district funds again, what that looks like. So how it affects the management fund. The management fund is outside of, we used to get commercial industrial rollback money to kind of supplement what we ask for from the management fund. Now, we still need to ask for a dollar amount. What that means for property taxpayers that we have to ask for the rate for a little bit more to get that same dollar amount because we're not getting the commercial industrial money back. Same thing with the debt service fund. If we need X dollars to get this debt, instead of setting a tax rate to get the debt of $2 or $4, we have to get a little bit more because we're not getting that commercial industrial rollback money back. PEPAL fund, because we had that set at $1.34 total, because we're not getting commercial industrial money back, we're losing money on that. We're not, there's nothing gained on that. We still get the $1.34, but there's no industrial commercial on top of that. Some numbers here. So what that means from last year, it's $35,000 management fund, debt service is $160,000, but PEPAL lost money is $125,000 without having that commercial industrial back. Property valuations, there was an error on this sheet before. I had 13.08% as total change from 22 is actually 5.05%, but you see some TIF movement there. That's the tax increment financing properties, mainly in the Altoona area, moving to the regular valuation. What that means is that helps out the general fund, a little bit less tax to garner the same dollar amount within the general fund piece.
What's coming off right now?
I don't recall, but I think it's the Target string area, Target, Walmart.
Coming
area
off?
right through there,
Okay.
correct.
Doesn't Pleasant Hill have a big TIF area coming up this year, next year?
I don't think it's for a few more years yet. I want to say it's 25, if I remember correctly, but I'll look at it and get back to you.
One of the council person said there was one coming up recently.
It could be, but then the taxes are a year.
Delayed.
Oh,
as
you're,
well.
okay.
That's probably 25.
I'll have to ask.
Yeah.
Ask him again, but
Overall, from a valuation standpoint, property tax valuations over the past 5 years, including this year, has gone up on average 7%, which is good. General fund, tax rate considerations, dropout prevention, you approved at about $1.3 million. The cash reserve levy, as we talked about the SBRC approval for the modified allowable growth, which is MAG, that's based on certified enrollment. A lot of acronyms, I know. That was increased enrollment, increase in EL students, and then increase in the open enrollment out not reported. The excess ELL costs and special education deficit, those are all parts of the tax rate considerations. From a standpoint of what that means dollars wise, just under $1 million in total for those considerations. Given what you see there, the special ed deficit is $2.5 million from last year. Total available for garnering back money that we didn't receive yet for next year is about $3.9 million. What we have though, as far as what we can go after is $4.24 million. So we have available to us, it gets a little bit complicated. We have available to us 20% of the prior year expenditures to get back to cash reserve money. That's $4.24 million. We spent $3.9 million or garnered additional authority this year for next year of $3.9 million. So we could get another $300,000 in cash reserve, but I'm going to show you why we're not going to do that here next. Ask questions about that, please, because that's complicated. It's different. Sorry. Next slide. Debt service decreases due to property valuations going up. Management fund considerations. We did drop the management rate revenues, the management revenues For the 22 school year, we're gonna bump them up quite a bit for this 23 school year to get to where we need to pay for the things that we need to pay for, like insurances, workers' comp, litigation, fix insurance, etc.
I'm sorry, you're going kind of fast. What are we bumping up?
The management fund,
Okay.
the tax rate in the management fund.
Okay.
The composite tax rate through the years for us has remained the same over the past 2 years, including this year. For next year, and this is just tentative, I'm surprised nobody caught this because the numbers were off. So just a quick story real quick. The budget tool that we use now used to be on a spreadsheet. Now it's a web-based form. If you don't hit save, you lose the things you put in. So I was caught in one of those actions, but this is correct now. For the general fund, you see what we had this year and what was last year. Same for the management, PEPAL, and debt service. As I talked about that management fund, we garnered $1 million last year at 48 cents per thousand. This year, we need $2.8 million. We had a pretty good management fund balance in the past. We kind of worked that down. Now we need to bring that back up. So overall, tax rate, we're going to keep the same. We're going to keep where it's at. It will stay the same. There's one piece that still comes out March 1st through the Department of Management. That's the interim service tax totals. And then the final slide is kind of what we look like relative to our metro area folks and where we sit at for taxes this year and last year.
Next year, can you put that in order?
That's great. Considering West Des Moines is commercial property rich and we're not, we are outstanding.
What's our actual number? Where do we actually fall in there?
In this group?
Like what order?
In
Since that's
rate.
sorted.
Because
Yeah.
obviously that's not,
They're just alphabetic.
They're
That's not-
alphabetical.
yeah.
That looks like
this
number
is
2
just-
to me.
Number
This is just the
2, yeah.
metro area. So we were.
Right behind West Des Moines.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, I think it was 70th was where we were for 22. 70th highest in the state. Different from how many years back it was.
Being the
number one or
highest,
number two, correct?
number
We used
2
to be like
highest.
19.
No, it used to be number 2.
Well, like
We were at $21.
21, okay.
Yeah.
21.66.
But that was like when you first started, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
After we built.
I
the
can't
high
remember
school.
that far back, so I remember 19 for sure, but
I remember it.
I think you might have been remembering the 19.1 negative solvency ratio we had back.
maybe that's what it is. 19's in my mind for something.
Budget timeline, March 10th is the presentation of the board again. This is the second look at this. April 7th is a public hearing approval, and then we have to certify by the 15th.
Ready for questions?
Ready for questions?
Comments? Insurance,
Yes.
are we gonna go out and at least see what we can find for other insurance? I hear we have some issues with some.
Our
Just-
insurance third-party administrator, no, we have a 3-year contract with them.
That is a 3-year.
Which
Okay.
expires
That
when?
was,
This is the first year.
So it expires not in 22, not in 23, but in 24.
Correct.
but
Okay.
are we looking into some of these concerns that people have? Have you received those yet?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure I've heard that there's some issues and try to get those resolved, at least if.
As
since
to
we're-
quality of insurance.
It was, it was a big transition. We had questions at the beginning, we have questions now. Some of the things that have come up, and if we don't know about them, we can't help them, right? So we have answered a number of questions kind of grouped in that manner when it relates to formulary changes perhaps that happened in the pharmacy side of things when it comes to how we reimburse through flexible spending, those types of questions certainly.
Yeah, and I would assume you do this, so like each year that if we transition to a different company, is somebody making notes as far as what people, the issues that we have, and then when we go to transition, checking with that company, because I get it, it's all about dollars and cents that we look at, like, okay, well, there's no changes in maybe our deductible, there's no changes in the cost of what the district pays, but there are changes in the actual
Coverage.
insurance and
service,
coverage.
yeah.
So in those things, when, and again, which will be my next question, is chapter 20, but those things are obviously important to the employees.
Sure, absolutely.
Obviously, cost savings is important to us because that it just trickles down, but, so with that said, in chapter 20, obviously, this is more of a statement. I have faith that we will continue to provide benefits and wages and stuff that are similar, equal to what we're doing now, even though we only have to negotiate wages. So it's more of a statement, just, I would highly encourage, I guess.
But
and
that's
have
up to
faith
the
in-
board.
No, I know, but we don't negotiate, they do.
Right.
So it's just more of just letting them know, wink, wink. We have,
Sure, and just to kind of add to that, we will schedule a closed session to have a discussion about what the wishes of the board will be as we turn our negotiators loose through the process.
So it's not in public.
Was
Okay,
that a question? I'm sorry.
no, my comments are about insurance because I know they're not happy about it, so
Yep.
I'm just bringing that up.
Just so the board knows too, it wasn't a decision by administration strictly. We do have an insurance committee made up of reps from both sides, from the classified group and the teachers unions group. We have administrators on it. We have consultants that do that as well. And it's not, you're right, it's absolutely not just about cost. You know, some of the things we did, we made sure that things rolled over that should have rolled over. We've even kept things in the plan that typically would not be in the plan. Things like if you have a behavioral therapist that you can use and it's not part of the network now, we've allowed those people to come over to use that same therapist because they've been using that therapist for the past year.
no, and I get that, and I get that the unions had some say in it, but we shouldn't just, we should kind of be looking out for them too and saying, we're looking at the cost, they're looking at, cost as well, but sometimes when you're in the midst of negotiations and these are your options, these are the only options you have, because they lay, I know when I negotiated, you get well, Blue Cross Blue Shield's this place is this, and this is that, and you're looking at that bottom line as far as, oh gosh, my paycheck's gonna go down, if we don't stay somewhere in the same cost. It's always, but do we as the district need to help look after that and say, make sure that the benefits are someone to say when we say, well, yeah, it's the same, it's similar. I can't remember the term they use. Joe could probably help me out, but when you say it's apples to apples type thing. Comps are the same and, so. Not saying that we don't, I'm just more questioning. I would hope somebody is doing that. And since chapter 20 is now, that was the point, is we're only at salary.
Yeah.
It really does put it more on us now to.
Sure.
So along with that, do we communicate that to the staff and teachers and everybody? Do we tell them what we're keeping from the old plan that we typically wouldn't have in there? Like, are we doing a comparison so
Are you
that they
referring
know?
to the insurance itself?
Right, so that
Yep.
they know what, I mean,
Yes.
small amount of what we're doing for them.
Yep, so during that transition, during that analysis phase,
Mhm.
the coverage itself, we've maintained the coverages in most aspects of the plan that we had previous, that came over. I think there were some administration transition issues to start. I've heard questions here lately about some specific issues. And again, just hearing those questions now, just concerns now, we weren't able to address those until they came to our attention. But yes, we're addressing those questions. But as far as coverage, that's changed. At the same time we made the transition, we also moved our co-pays for prescription drugs to help save the plan, because that's save costs to our members for the plan, because without that, premiums would go up.
I just want to make sure that this is what it was, this is what it could be, and this is what we negotiated to get to, so that everybody knows that we put some thought into it.
Well, I guess from my experiences, and I would assume it's the same, you probably get the sheet of.
We have one plan. We don't have multiple plans.
No, I mean, when you negotiate, when those dollars and cents come out and say, well, your insurance is gonna go up, and then they say, well, here's this company has this plan, and here's the comparables.
Oh,
Most of the
absolutely.
time,
Yeah.
and that's where the union
Yeah.
does have this, some of the say and say, well, we choose this.
Mhm.
They're just not gonna get that say anymore.
Absolutely.
Right.
We analyzed, it must have been seven different third-party administrators for this. to make sure they hit kind of our criteria, what we needed. And that's, again, the decision was an insurance committee decision, but it came to that. But yeah, and we also, even now, we analyze things like, okay, what happens if we change our copays to this? How does it affect premium, and kind of do those projections as well.
I'm just kind of a transparency person. I want them to know what happened behind the scenes, you know, so it's not just like, well, here's what you get.
And that's why we have the union reps sitting at the table
HR
with us.
too.
Correct. And HR is
HR.
at the table as well.
Thank you.
So what about this 345,000?
We see that plan soon, what we're gonna do, or
Yeah, I mean, there's other things to talk about as we talk about what the board wants to do as far as maybe program changes. It talks about, you know, staff changes perhaps. That's
usually you tell us you can save us. And then we're not gonna have to cut anything. So when does that magic hat come out?
If this stays the same as it is now, and I'll say it now, I would recommend us not making any budget reactions. So we have a healthy unspent spending authority balance. We have a good solvency balance. I think to keep things as is now, I mean, I wish we could get more from some of the state aid at the state level, obviously. You know, with the things we're getting and what we know of from a negotiation standpoint, we couldn't be behind the 8 ball right away.
Right,
So.
and we
yes.
should, just never mind.
345,000 is an estimate of where we're at, where we fall, where CARES COVID money helps us out, where some of these, you know, as people leave their professions and ones come in, their savings there as well. I think those things are kind of part of our analysis.
How much of our savings do we have? Our healthy, what'd you call it?
Unspent authority.
Yeah,
As far as dollars, it's a point in time every year, but there's 17.3% is unspent authority. Is that what you're asking?
well, in that, I know we don't call it a savings account. The money that we actually have that kind of hangs out there. And I know I'm not using the right words for you, so I
Maybe our
apologize.
Fund balance, maybe
Solvency?
solvency.
Like, how much do we have in the savings? Like,
No, so the
what cushion do we have?
The 345,000 deficit, we have money to,
Yeah, that's our fund balance. Right?
Fund
That's what
balance.
we're talking about the same
Okay.
thing, the spending,
Yeah.
unspent spending authority, all those things that we carry over from year to year.
yeah, it's not really a savings account, but that's how I have to look at it, is like, we do have money to,
We
Had
would use
that.
part of our fund balance. Yeah,
So if
you'll
we-
see those ratios go, if everything's held the same, we'll see those ratios go down if we choose to keep this is where it's at.
yeah, so the question is how much do we have there to, when we pull that 345,000 out to make us zero to balance this? Are we still gonna be like
Yeah,
over?
no, we'll, out of the unspent spending authority, it would drop less than 0.5%. Probably as
Okay.
it sits today.
So we're gonna
obviously
be
about
way,
the same.
we'll be fine.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's what everybody wants to know.
But that is something to look for in 2024 when the CARES Act goes.
Yeah, and the CARES Act is nice to have money. It's not a lot of money in the whole scheme of things.
Okay.
And the CARES Act money, we spent a lot of that with mitigation of COVID, right? So,
Right.
and we've used that money quite effectively when it comes to long-term substitutes in the system, those areas in our buildings, with absences and things of that nature.
It may not be, I would think it's important, but it may not be important to everybody, but I think would be interesting to share how we get to that deficit. Why are we in a deficit? I know it's not because of mismanagement of funds, because people do say, well, they're gonna hear we're in a deficit. Can you put something together to say, why does this cause a deficit each year? Because we've had a deficit ever since we've even.
Well, I think the takeaway is that the one slide, Jason, can you roll back probably?
Slide number 8.
Slide number 8. Thank you, Mr. Crab. Can you just roll back? Yeah, all right there. So the takeaway is this, based on new money, right? Based on the supplemental state aid, based on our enrollments, based on new money, based on the things that are out there as far as what we project for expenditures. That's the takeaway. I mean, I don't know if there's when you ask for why are we in the deficit this year? Why? I wouldn't call it a deficit. Why are we short revenues this year on regular programs relative to what we expect for revenues, expenditures? It really is a shortage of supplemental state aid.
Because we're getting 2.5.
We know that. And you know that, but the public's gonna look at it and they're gonna say,
Yeah.
well, you got too much
This much
administrative,
money.
you know, you've heard that all the past stuff is mismanagement of this. It's, I mean,
Huh.
we have never really recovered is the point from 2009 and 11. Lori knows for sure. Dirk knows, everybody, Joe knows. We've never really recovered positions that we've
From
cut,
everything we cut, 10 million.
and we're still hanging on there. So, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I was hoping you could put it into the
Yeah.
style of Kevin,
I mean, yes.
but I
and
guess
no.
you weren't picking up what I was laying
Well,
down.
remember, yes and no. Yes, we made those reductions, but also remember where we were at with unspent spending authority and solvency ratio back then. We can make choices to say we want to spend this on other things, but the choice is also spend and do what we need to do from a program side, but also you'll see those ratios go down. Right, so as we talk about things like bonding, we may bond for money. The ratios of 5 to 15% as what the ISB has for solvency ratio. Those are the same things our metrics, the people that actually lend the money look at. So if our solvency ratio goes down to 2%, it's going to cost us a lot more money if we need it in the future when we bond. But if we keep this ratios at 15%, 15 to 20%, it's going to cost us far less money when it comes to interest. Not as important in this market today because interest rates are so low. But as the economy recovers, as inflation hits, that's going to be a pretty big deal if we have to bond out again.
We haven't been fully funded since like 2009. That's what I'm
We haven't
saying.
been fully funded since I was born.
And I guess that's where my point goes is we still have things that we need to do
Oh, my God.
and we can't stay, I mean, our deficit's not gonna,
You can't keep
So,
hoping
yeah.
for
yeah.
So
retirements and all that to
Right,
make up
right.
the negatives that we get when we get this kind of funding.
So we aren't in a deficit position entirely. We're talking about deficit for this year and where the revenues expenditures lined up. You know, if we had 150 more students than we have now currently within the enrollment, we wouldn't have a deficit, right? Because we have 150 times
Extra
$7,400
the
per
money,
student.
yeah.
So enrollment is another big thing too, that drives where we're at for what we get for regular program funds. So I guess as we continue to go through COVID, as families continue to move here with economic development and housing, you see a lot of the housing developments go around here in Pleasant Hill and around the community. But as we continue to get students in the program or in Southeast Polk University, or whatever it may be, we'll see more money come our way from that aspect as well.
So bottom line, we have no funds for air conditioned bathrooms, right?
That's a different fund, Rick.
That's a different fund.
We got plenty of money for that.
That's
Don't even help them out, Rick.
I was just trying to
Don't
bring
get
this
them
to
out
the
there.
close here.
Poor Brett.
Yeah.
I'm gonna at least have a fan in there.
Bring your own on your head.
One of those big, what do they call them? The big metal blade things. Just pushing air through that sucker.
I was just trying to bring it to the close.
Yeah.
What's the 2.49 million in increases kind of?
Just what I expect as far as salaries, benefits, and not knowing we're going to land on negotiations yet. That's just something that I have projected based on
Yeah.
the things I know.
Was that like on staffing and stuff too? Like any staffing additions or anything?
Just
No,
straight who we have.
straight.
Yep, based on what we're looking at now. Non-personnel costs are just inflationary type items.
It's not what I expected to see.
You're welcome.
I mean, is the
Thank you, Kevin.
is the savings account like, it feels like it's a reasonable analogy. I know it's different with authority and all that stuff, but like, I mean, basically what you're saying is our costs are gonna go up this next year for inflationary reasons, negotiations, whatever. And the amount that we're getting in SSA doesn't match what we're projecting that's gonna be. So that's where the deficit is, but then we add, if we wanted to add more staff, wanted to hire another counselor or more reading specialist or whatever, then that's probably gonna go up even more.
Correct.
And then basically we're paying for that out of our savings account, so to speak.
Yeah, but those are all ongoing, not just one time, right? So if you hire somebody, it's
Right.
perpetual.
Right. So we can, because of where you've gotten us with solvency and unspent authority, we can do that for a period of time, but eventually it's gonna get down to a point where we're not getting the good bond ratings and everything else.
Correct. And we haven't seen 4% subsidy for years.
That's what I'm saying. Well, we saw it pre 2010.
Correct.
But we've seen 1% and 2% since 2009. So they slowly are doing this to us.
And luckily for us, we are growing. school
Yes,
district.
that's the only thing that saves
Different
us.
from other school districts that we're declining enrollment. And that's
Like-
why I have you guys, have the board do the budget guarantee every year, because we just don't know where this stuff lands.
If you don't live in the metro, I mean, basically smaller schools out in Iowa
Mhm.
that are declining enrollment, they're always getting less and less money.
Mhm.
And because we're in the metro and we can eke out growth, we are increasing money slightly.
Yeah.
To keep us going.
The urbanization, the suburbanization of Iowa, certainly. And I'll
Hey.
leave it, yes.
No, I'm sorry. I was gonna say something.
Oh,
I thought you were done.
Just one other thought. I mean, this is what we're talking about for Southeast Polk. There are other legislations that are going through right now that may have a heavy effect on the things that we do here.
Financially.
Financially, certainly. But again, those things, they've got to get through the legislative process, and we might see them, we may not see them.
I was just gonna tell Lori she needs to just sell more homes.
There's- they
We
did
need, what, 154 more?
They did a
kids?
bunch of permits last month,
So
but those won't
Get those
be,
loans out there on those homes.
yeah,
so
they
those
won't,
families
they won't
will-
be done until summer break.
This whole thing rides on you, Lori.
Yep. I carry the weight every year, believe me. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
That's a
Yes.
memo.
Second.